It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. If you're new here, I'm glad to have you. This podcast was formed to collectively build a bank of stories from normal people sharing their non-linear paths. Unfortunately, social media paints a narrow picture of what success looks like, so I'm doing my best to spread the news that changing course is common, and you don't have to know what you want to do the rest of your life at 18. If you're a parent worried about your young adult and whether their path is leading them to success, you're in the right place. I'm a therapeutic consultant who works with young adults to connect them with resources that'll help them get back on a better path. So if you're curious, let's chat. You can schedule a free consultation through my website, which you can find the link for in the show notes. Today, my guest is Cindy Palmer. Cindy has spent the last 25 plus years at the intersection of education and therapy, helping young adults navigate a world that often misunderstands their unique brains. But her path here was anything but linear. She's been everything from a cave tour guide to a canoe shuttle driver, a high school biology teacher to a therapist. Today, she's the founder of Threshold Coaches, where she and her team support college students who are struggling with executive functioning challenges, helping them build skills, confidence, and direction. Here's Cindy. Hi, Cindy. Thanks for being on the podcast.
You are welcome. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited to have you. I appreciate, well, there are things that I feel like are kismet or like serendipity in terms of like meeting people at certain places and times. And I was literally just saying this before we hit record that I only just met Cindy within the last month, but I learned about her Starting Strong program and the resources that they have, which we'll get to later on down the line. But I was so excited that I even shared it in my newsletter with all of the families that like went out today. So, oh my gosh, clearly I am a fan. I'm excited to hear your story and I'm going to stop like fangirling right in this moment.
Okay, please do. I'm not used to that. Like not Yes.
All right. So why don't you do this? We'll go back to our typical questions. Why don't you actually tell us, where did you grow up and what was the information that you were getting around, like from your family and or the community in which you were raised about what you're supposed to be doing after high school?
Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in a tiny town, Floyd's Knobs, Indiana. It's a suburb of Louisville, Kentucky. And I grew up in a highly educated family. My dad had his Mass MBA. He just could stay in school for the rest of his life if someone would let him do that. My mom and he both went to college together. And the message was, you're going to college. I mean, there was absolutely no question at all in my mind or theirs about the college journey, and that is absolutely what comes after high school. I think the specifics around that would be go far enough away to where your wings can spread. And so for me, that was 3 hours away, or it was like far enough to be a pain to get home, but easy enough without a flight and big expense and that kind of thing. Education, education, education was the message. Because there was no life without it, is kind of what the message was from my family, for sure. Yes.
So what did you end up doing? You said, hey, I picked a place 3 hours away, which is like just far enough, but also close enough. So what was your college experience even like?
Yeah. So I went to Miami of Ohio, which if you're not from the Midwest, you've never heard of it. And you think Miami and it's Florida, and the people in Miami of Ohio get really mad because it was a university before Florida was a state. But anyway, Miami of Ohio. And I majored in microbiology. I chose that school, this is no joke, because it was pretty, period. End of sentence. Like, that was it. It really didn't even have necessarily the major I wanted. I don't know that I would have chosen microbiology specifically. I definitely wanted to go into biology, but that specific was not really what I wanted to do. But it was the best of the 3 biology options. So I went that route. I loved it. I was a total nerd, and I was the nerd who would go get extra textbooks in addition to the textbook, because I would learn way more when I read it for the second time in a different book versus the same book again. And yeah, I was relatively successful except for Anthropology 101. I hated that class. I could not figure it out. And it was my only, like one of my few all nighters, and I still did terrible on the test. So, but that was my only C, right? So, like, but I worked hard, big time hard. I also was an athlete in college, so I did that as well, which filled up the time for sure. And so that was another piece of my life to balance. And then I just didn't basically have a life outside of school and sport. That was pretty much it. That's all there was space for. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm hearing you say, like, as you're describing your the academic side of your collegiate experience, like, you have very much drawn me into this image of you being very studious. And in order for somebody to really go that extra mile of reading a second textbook with the same information, like, you put in a lot of time, and then you compound that with, like you said, being a student athlete. That is, you have to be so organized. Like, you can't struggle with any type of executive functioning. Or if you do, you have somebody that's really helping you, like, drive that home. Because otherwise, like you said, there's literally no room for anything outside of sports and school.
Right.
So fast forward to you graduating. I could make some assumptions about what somebody is doing with a microbiology degree, but
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a weird path out of there. End of my sophomore year, you would traditionally start getting ready for the MCAT. All my fellow peers in my major, that's what they were doing their junior year, was prepping for that thing. And I have no idea. This is no joke. I wish I knew. I wish I could go back and have a conversation with my 19-year-old self and, like, interview her and wonder with her how she came to this conclusion, because the conclusion was, I can't imagine myself in med school. I don't know what about it I couldn't imagine, because everything about being a doctor was, like, straight up my alley. And even to this day, I don't regret it. I do not, but I think I would have liked it. So anyhow, so I just jumped off the bus, but I didn't want to change majors because I had no idea what I would change to. I hated the lab, hated it. It ruined my day every day. No people doing tedious tasks. Yuck. Like, I liked the concepts behind the science that was happening when I added 15 micropipette, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just that stuff and what would happen that you couldn't see. I liked thinking about that, but the task itself was bleh. So then it was, I don't know, I have a microbiology major, and, like, now what? So found an article in the back of a magazine. It was 1 inch by 1 inch. This is not a joke. And it was about a camp in Wisconsin in the middle of nowhere that did outdoor leadership. And they had an outdoor leadership practicum for a year. And I grew up in the Midwest, but I loved the mountains and everything outdoors. And so, yeah, so I was intrigued. And long story short, I went. There's a lot in there that, like, extra fingers pointing in that direction, right? And I went and did this weird thing, and I have no idea why my parents were not super mad at me. I don't remember that. They just let me do this very random, not associated with anything that I'd done before path. And they paid for college for me. So that was, an investment in what? Okay, 4 years of something that doesn't apparently point in the direction that I went after. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Okay. So a little off course, especially,
off course.
Yeah, like you said, jumping off the bus compared to all of your peers.
Who are all doctors now.
Right.
They followed their paths. I jumped off, jumped ship. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now you spend a year up in Wisconsin at this outdoor leadership program. Like,
yes.
Honestly, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around, how does that even, I mean, obviously I'm one to not to say anything because I've had so many different jobs to like marry them all in terms of the experience of like who you are as a professional and the work that you're doing. And I do want to get to that. Mm-hmm. So give us kind of the high notes from there. Where did the path take you to leading to the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, in essence, I kind of describe my life like a seesaw running around from education stuff to therapy stuff and back and forth between those two worlds. So what happened in that camp setting was that in the fall of that year, lots of students would come from the local school. So I did some work with some outdoor, like group bonding, do the thing, outdoors together, teamwork kind of stuff. Loved that place, loved that school, and ended up there the next year. So I was, in essence, an informal social worker, and then couldn't keep that job because the grant was done because we started succeeding. And that's the devil of a grant, is that when you don't have failing numbers, you don't qualify anymore. So anyway, then I went and got my teaching cert so I could go back to the school. That didn't happen. And then I was a teacher on accident, like for real. I became a teacher on accident because it was seriously just to go back to that school and be with that population of staff and students. And I really loved the place. So again, not lots of logic going on outside of, I just knew the people that I felt connected with and that it was meaningful work and I wanted to go back to that place. So I have a teaching certificate, don't know where to go. I love Colorado. Let's move there. So I was a teacher there and then moved to Washington for 5 years, but started realizing the one thing I loved about teaching was when kids came to me one-to-one. So I got my master's in counseling while I was still teaching. And I had some kids right in there. So that's the muddled mess that I pull from as far as my current position, right? Is that I've got my classroom experience with high school students, and then I have a master's in counseling and did some therapy in the adolescent world and the young adult world right there after I got that master's degree. So that's sort of my springboard into where I am now, if that makes sense.
I'm just picturing this like snake slithering, right? In terms of the like path that you were on and the twists and turns. But I can see how there is some similarities, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of I think I heard the keyword connection, mm-hmm. right? Being a big part of maybe a common thread throughout a lot of those experiences, mm-hmm. and the places that you lived, like the importance of like outdoor access or just like being in a more like outdoor minded community or state.
Yeah.
But now, like you said, you've got your master's in counseling. You really like working with students one-on-one. You dabbled in doing some individual therapy, which you're no longer doing. And then you decide to start a business? How did this happen?
Then I decided, bless you, therapist, is what I decided, because I was like, I am peace out. I am out of here. I am done with this. It was a lot of healing that needed to happen in my clients in 1 hour's time, and a lot of influences in the other. I forget how many hours are in a week. It's like 160. Something. It's a lot of hours that influence the rest of themselves, and a lot of expectations from parents because they're very worried and concerned. And so I didn't want to swing that bat anymore. So I needed to move back towards the center of the seesaw, right, between education and therapy. So I started tutoring because it was like therapy meets teacher. It's one-on-one talking about school stuff. Cool. And I had little bitty kids. So I'm like trying to do a job that I can do in them, like these weird little pockets of time. So I started doing that and worked myself into a place where they wanted me to tutor the next level of whatever class it was. And I couldn't do it because it wasn't in my skill set. So then I thought about hiring, and I was like, this is crazy. I have no idea what I'm doing. Literally no idea. Never intended to own a business. And then I hired somebody, and he worked with me for 4 years, and we did tutoring. It was called STEM tutoring. And that grew, and I ended up having about 10 tutors each year. And we tutored neurodiverse kiddos, and basically high school math and science. So yeah, it was fantastic. And it worked while it worked. And then it started to branch into some more coaching opportunities, and college students started reaching out, and that grew. And I thought, I can't do both those worlds. So I sold the tutoring, sold this tutoring aspect of things, and then kept the executive function part and focused only on college kids with ADHD. At the same time, like my own nerdy supposed focused bill back in college wouldn't indicate this, but like for surezies, I self-diagnosed ADHD at this point. Need to make it official, but it's present. And that became more obvious with the years that happen. And all that happens is you attempt to run a business and your focus is not what you want it to be. So, like I go back to textbooks and reading two of them, it's because I got bored and couldn't learn it from one. It wasn't like some supernatural like focus ability. It was like I knew I had to get this information in my head in some way. And so a different path was the best path. And that kind of fits, right? Like there's some pieces even in that supposed strong executive function performance I pulled off that I was like, oh, okay, that's why I'd worked so hard at that.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so that brings me here. That brings me now. But it's been running back and forth trying to find sort of this perfect balance of, and you're funny to say connect is the theme, because literally the motto, which I like painstakingly chose for both of those companies, the tutoring was connect, learn, grow. And then the coaching is connect, learn, thrive. And the connect piece comes first on purpose. It's in both of them because it should be. And so anyhow, it's funny that you pulled that because that actually makes me really happy because that's true. Yeah.
Well, it's evident.
Yeah.
So tell us the name of the actual business, your ADHD coaching for college students, because I know I obviously came right out of the gate being like, oh my gosh, we met and I sent this to every family that I've ever worked with so they could learn about it. Even if it's not for them, it was more for like, hey,
yeah,
if you know somebody else that could benefit from this, because honestly, I do get asked that all the time. Obviously, I'm going to stop talking about that, but go back to tell us the name of your business.
Yeah, it's called Threshold Coaches. And again, that was very painstakingly chosen because threshold's the doorway from one spot to another. Right. And that transition from high school to college we don't have any more rites of passage left. Right. Like, I feel like it's a sudden one. It's not supported. It's not guided. It doesn't have a lot of wisdom attached. And there's a lot of assumptions and cultural norms that don't fit everyone. And it's definitely a threshold. Some will call it a cliff. Some will call it, I don't know, you can look at it how you want to, but it's fitting. It fits well. So yeah, I've been thankful that was the name choice because every time I come back to it conceptually, it's like, yeah, that's it. It's what we do. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to ask you this pointed question.
I'm ready.
Because I want to make sure we were offline and I was like, all right, I want to ask you to give like advice for, parents and like you could probably go for 30 minutes just in like the tip of the iceberg with advice for parents. So I want to make sure we get to that. But having heard kind of your own personal and professional journey leading to where you are now, do you see yourself as successful?
I struggled with this question when I was thinking about it because I'm also a bit of a perfectionist, hard on myself, yada, yada, yada. It depends on the day, honestly, and the moment in that day. And I think I'm just going to kind of look at my notes over here because this one I had to really think through. I think when all of me shows up, all of me, and is well received, but like my moment in meeting you, that was successful. Right? All of me was there. All of you was there. There was some sort of connection that was built that will be fostered and carried on for the benefit of humans that struggle in this world. Right? Like, I think that is success. If I can help folks who've lost their dignity along the way to restore it and feel it and own it again, oh, that is rich. And that is the work I would like to be doing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, That is rich.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm going to kind of segue right into the advice giving section, right? Before we close out. And just for anybody that's listening, please, please, please go to the show notes. We're going to have the links for all ways in which to learn about Threshold Coaches, what it is that they're doing this summer, and how you can get connected to for support during the academic year. Because believe it or not, it's June. August is going to be here real quick. So let's be proactive. I cannot emphasize that enough. So again, good segue into giving advice for parents. If you have any, and I'm not going to limit you, Cindy. I know I said just one piece of advice, but what feels most pressing to you to share in terms of advice for parents of young adults right now?
Okay. I think I'm going to share 3 little itty bitty things and not elaborate. And you can just ask me what you want to, but they both have just hit so home with me. First of all, I'm in the middle of my own parenting journey with the 17 and 20-year-old. So I'm in this exact messy, crazy, seeking after autonomy and independence while still needing guidance phase of life, right? So, and I don't do it well. You can ask my own children. I struggle through this too. So I think, say this more often. It's up to you. That's it. Say that more often and mean it. Back off if you can and manage your own anxiety so that you can say that statement and let it be. Right? So the other piece is parenting. These windy paths that your whole podcast is kind of based on is really, really, really hard work. And I think I just heard this past week and I loved it. It's not about being the perfect parent in these moments because you will utterly fail lots because this is a really hard place to be. And I think the reframe was fail and get quicker at restoring relationship with your child. Don't seek not failing because that's not really an option. It's too messy. So when the mess happens, prioritize the relationship, say sorry faster and mean it and get back in there, right? Because they need you, whether they're going to claim that or not. I've had a lot of opportunities to say sorry and I've missed some too. So yeah. And then the only other one I would say would be like, wonder if at this moment your child has more to teach you than you have to teach them, because they might. And isn't that weird and ironic? But I bet it's true sometimes. So yeah, that's it.
And it would be such a beautiful, if you're the type of parent that drives being the one giving advice and knowledge and, kind of being the adult in that relationship, if you take an opportunity to be curious about what your child can teach you, I think that actually might be a beautiful opportunity for a shift. Like you said, like that could really open some doors, strengthen relationship, allow your young adult to become more independent or more self-confident in believing that they're capable because you clearly have shifted in providing that space to like look at them as if they are the knower or the, expert in that conversation.
Yeah, I think curiosity, if it can lead, you're probably doing a better job if you can hold that up front and let that be your lead. Yeah, just let it be the horse that leads the cart. Because when I don't do that and I think I know, I'm almost always wrong. So, yeah.
Well, Cindy, thank you for being at that conference when we crossed paths, because that was meant to be. But honestly, thank you for just being a trooper and quickly allowing me to get to know you, to rope you into being a guest on the podcast so quickly, and for doing the work that you're doing. Because I think the one thing that I think about when it comes to the quantity of resources that exist for young adults out there, because let me tell you, I have connected with a lot of resources, is that the more I connect with, the less I like. And so
Yeah.
the quality of resources and people, right? That connection, the authenticity, the intention, the meaning, all of it, like that kind of shines through. And that's why I think you and I had that instantaneous connection, because I saw a kindred spirit in the work that we're doing to help young adults right now. And so again, I just really appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to continuing to be a collaborator with you over the years.
Yeah, me too. So excited. Yeah, for sure.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email joanna@lilleyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilleyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.